So welcome, our beloved, brilliant brother Kurtis. We so appreciate your consistent leadership. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks to our creator, by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks and acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassionate compensation. We give thanks and acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Brother Kurtis, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work?
Brother Victor, it is a pleasure to be here. Absolutely. So my name is Kurtis Vermont, as you've mentioned. I'm the president and CEO of Vermont Strategies. And what we're focused on is supporting government relations, supporting political campaign management, and supporting community development, both in the GTHA, but also in connection with various states in Africa, as well as CARICOM. And so what we envision is a situation where we are using our relationships and our expertise to develop wealth and revenue, not only for ourselves, but for all who engage in our projects.
That's incredible, brother. Congratulations on this monumentous initiative and endeavor. I've been a fan of your work for almost a decade now, and we've been brothers. So once again, congratulations. That's remarkable. So my next question is, what's inspiring you right now? What has you curious, or what's keeping you up at nights?
I, as you know, am an individual who is, I focus on world events and how that affects everything else in terms of what we do here, whether it's in Canada or Africa, what we do at the community level. And so my focus right now is essentially twofold. Within the context that, you would know this as well, and many of our viewers know this as well, entrepreneurship, particularly business development for small and medium businesses, is key to advancing wealth, particularly for communities who historically have not had access to that wealth. There's also the reality that when we're looking at situations from a global perspective, and we were just having a conversation about capitalism, right now, we're in a place where the global order is teetering on collapse, and it's teetering on collapse in part due to the fact that many economic vehicles have been destroyed or need to be reconvened in some way. Case in point, we have Russia that is, attempting to seize Ukraine, and we have a plethora of other, conflicts around the world that are rooted in essentially a fight over resources. And so what we need to do is implement more of a cooperative framework where there's less of a need for that, and we advance that through trade. And so that's one of the main focuses of Vermont Strategies, advancing trade not only for economic development and ensuring that communities have the resources they need, but quite frankly, forestalling war and conflict as well. This is the basis of political and community engagement, which we focus on.
That's incredible, and I couldn't agree more. In a world of abundance, it's scary and ultimately disappointing that we still live in a time when there's wars being waged everywhere, literally across the planets. Babies crying and mothers dying over, once again, resources, land, minerals. So once again, I appreciate your leadership and your visionary thinking around this. So my next question, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work? And what are some of the approaches you and your colleagues are taking to address some of these challenges and barriers?
I think a main challenge is, and there are a few, but I think a main challenge is changing thinking, advancing thinking into a not necessarily more progressive state, but one that is inclusive of more individuals. And here's an example of what I mean. So here back in Scarborough, here in Toronto, one of the things that we focus on through Vermont Strategies is what's called the Scarborough Anchor Institution Strategy. And what this is, Victor, is a social procurement strategy where we are essentially asking anchors, there are 5 at this point. There's the University of Toronto Scarborough, there's the zoo, there's the Scarborough Health Network, there's Centennial College, and there's the Rouge Urban National Park. At this point, we've had meetings with 4 out of 5, and 4 out of 5 are ready to go and support this strategy. And what we're saying is within the context that, yes, there are trade deals where, you are required to spend in a certain way as a result. You do have discretion up to about $120,000 in terms of how you fulfill your supply chain demands. And so what we're asking is that you engage with more businesses from Scarborough, you fulfill your demands with more businesses from Scarborough. And as a result, there's, as I've been saying, more wealth that is circulated within a community as opposed to leaving that community. And of course, that leads to wealth creation for those who are there. As I mentioned, 4 out of 5 are on board, and I expect that we're going to have 5 out of 5. But there's an ongoing, I shall say, conversation about what the details actually look like. And what folks that I've engaged with have said to me on this point is, yes, there's a mind shift that has to happen. Yes, there's some legal hurdles that have to be overcome, but in a way, those are secondary to personalities and ideas that have to be kind of, amended. So I think that's a main issue, just changing hearts and minds.
Well, as you know, I grew up in Scarborough, and when I tell you that my first job ever was at the zoo, and it was yeah, the very first job was at the zoo. Leaving grade 8 and going into grade 9. It was a summer job. And when I think about social procurement and the importance of engaging anchor institutions, hospitals, universities, I think that's a brilliant strategy. And I think that when you look at the work that's happened federally with PSPC or across certain provinces and the legislation around best value versus cheapest price, I think your strategy is absolutely brilliant. So once again, I applaud you for that. I remember when I was in high school, my friends and I, we were trying to figure out a way to hack the uniforms. And we found out that there was one company that I won't name had a complete monopoly on all the uniforms at all the high schools in Scarborough. And we had our own embroidering machine and the polo shirts, and we were able to produce the polo shirts and the embroidered logos of the schools at $14 cheaper than this company. But the company had a deal with the high schools and the principals, and it was very incestuous insider baseball. But the fact remains, imagine back then, a social procurement policy 24 years ago. That could have literally saved lives. Because many of my friends, they ended up doing some very nefarious, like that could have led us to a pathway of entrepreneurship that would have been very different than some of the other pathways that my friends took. So once again, I applaud you and your colleagues for this remarkable work. And those are the details.
Thank you.
Social procurement can save lives, literally. So any way we can support, so let us know. So my next question is, do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work?
The key priorities are, as we've been talking about, developing trade relationships between Africa and CARICOM. There are some specific opportunities in the works right now, but I won't go into detail just because they're proprietary. So that's what I mentioned. One is trade development between Africa, Canada, as well as CARICOM. The second priority, I would say, is, here in Canada, we are approaching, if not, we are in election season, both at the federal level and the provincial level, and we just left a municipal season not too long ago. And so, we focus on 3 things, if I haven't mentioned that already: campaign management, political, or rather government relations, political campaign management, and trade. So with regards to campaign management, what we want to do, and we've already started these discussions, is put together a roster of individuals with strong credibility, but who are balanced in their thinking. And the logic behind this, Victor, is that there are good ideas from across the political spectrum. There is no one monopoly in that sense. And so we want to have a balanced conversation about what these ideas can entail and how they can work best for the most amount of people, which is not happening at this time. We essentially want to build a pipeline of candidates who will advance a more thoughtful agenda than currently exists, and that will bring more people together around shared values. So yes, one of those things is economic development. One of those things is social cohesion. We need, all these things that matter most. We want candidates that espouse that, and that essentially will be able to transform political parties, if not influence political parties for the better at all levels. I'd say the second most important thing after that, or the third most important thing after that, would be just assisting with organizations to engage government and advance particular policy and advocacy positions. And I'll say this particularly within the context that we very well may be seeing a change in government at the federal level this year, not next year, this year. And so we want to ensure that whoever needs to connect with the different parties in terms of that possible change in government, they have the opportunity to do so and influence those parties in the right direction. And so we're having conversations about that right now, for example, around social finance.
It's incredible. Congrats, congrats, congrats. I know that we've spoken offline and online in terms of just the importance of trade. And I know that for years, there's been so much, especially when you bring up social finance, the importance of investment readiness. And a lot of times I push back saying, well, are the fund managers the folks that are allocating capital on the supply side of capital allocation ready? Like, do they know how to engage diverse intermediaries and centering justice, access, inclusion, diversity, decolonization, equity, all these principles that folks espouse to? So investment readiness is important, but how important do you feel export readiness is? I know that right now we've been working on a strategy for a while to engage the feds around how to build out a strategy for export readiness for Black businesses, racialized businesses, to be able to deal with the global diaspora. How important do you feel that is? And how do you feel the future of trade in Canada looks like? Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? How are you feeling?
So I'll answer the last question first. I very much am hopeful. And I don't say what I'm about to say next to be facetious, but if I wasn't hopeful, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, right? Because this is what the business is based on. But if I look at the data, whether we're talking about Africa as a whole or CARICOM as a whole and trade between those regions and Canada, if I'm not mistaken, between 2001 and 2018, there was a 3x increase in trade between Canada and Africa, Canada and CARICOM. And so within that reality, trade is going to only increase if we continue to act responsibly. And I say that in terms of war and conflict. Trade will only increase. And so, yeah, I'm pretty optimistic that we will play our part. To get a bit more specific, and as you know, we're currently in conversation about a Canada-Africa free trade agreement, which of course we here at Vermont Strategies are fully supportive of. We'd like to see conversations recommence if they have not already since last year with regards to a Canada-CARICOM free trade agreement. But so again, these are our thought processes, and we do expect that they will come to fruition. So we're hopeful. In terms of export readiness, it is incredibly important to have that capacity building aspect as part of the conversation. And so, just to use a personal example, I'm also the chair of policy and advocacy for the Scarborough Business Association. Part of what we do part of what we do is capacity building, helping organizations to be prepared for the opportunities that would be coming down the pipeline, e.g., the Scarborough Anchor Institution strategy. And so I think it's very important that there is, investment and there is support to ensure that the export readiness that is required is implemented, and we can all grow together.
Thank you so much for your candor and leadership. So my second last question, what is your ultimate goal and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
The ultimate goal, I think, is twofold, Victor. We're not looking to be this massive company. What we are looking to do, though, is have massive impact. And so I think, one, we want to be responsible. We want to play a major role in helping to have more thoughtful, more engaged political parties that address the actual issues that people care about, as opposed to the nonsense that we see most of the time. So that's one. We'll do that by, advocating for, supporting, and essentially electing solid candidates. We'll also do this by helping to help organizations who want to engage government to move in a more thoughtful direction. We'll help them to do so with our expertise as well. The long-term thing, though, Victor, that I'd like to see, and I had been mentioning the type of candidates, the type of elected officials that we want to support. What I'd like to have long term is Vermont Strategies be a home for whether you be an elected official or a former staffer or whatever your role has been with regards to engaging government. If you are in that ecosystem and you need a home, particularly, and you have this mindset that you want to see a balanced, thoughtful view of government and how it administers itself, we're the home for you. And so we look to be a strong, essentially, not only, strong arm for commerce, but a strong arm for policy and advocacy as well.
That's incredible. Once again, I appreciate your visionary leadership, your candor, transparency, and just the discipline and rigor that you bring to every endeavor. I've always been proud to call you my brother and my
Proud of
colleague.
that too.
Yeah, brother, and you inspire us. So my last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and viewers?
Closing thoughts, don't be afraid to reach out if you think that we can assist you with your government relations or your campaign management or even your trade development needs. We do have a team in place that is ready to support you. That team has already been supporting others. So we're happy to assist you in that regard as well. I think that's the main thing. We're happy to be of service to those who require it. And I think I'll leave it there.
Incredible. Once again, my brother, you make our ancestors proud. You're a brother that I love when my sons get to listen in to hear you speak. I love the way you go about doing your work with nobility, with integrity, with great pride, brother. And I just appreciate all that you represent in so many ways. And I just thank you for investing this time with us. And as always at Setsi, we close the way it began by giving thanks to our creator, by acknowledging and giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge and give thanks to all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassionate compensation. We acknowledge and give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you, my beloved brother. I appreciate you.
It is my pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Salute.